Time for the papers.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
All right, 8 minutes to 8 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. Quick look at what's happening across the back pages this morning. We're going to start here with the Irish Independent. Ronaldo can swing final for Madrid, says Roy Keane, who's before the media yesterday in the lead into the Republic of Ireland's upcoming friendlies. And a picture of a beaming Mo Salah boarding the plane for Kiev at John Lennon Airport yesterday. There was more photographs of him beaming on the other side afterwards as well in some of the other papers.
Well, what does it say at the top right of that newspaper there, Adrian?
Tomás O'Shea, why Kildare are closer to Carlow than they are to Dublin.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a very hot take for me there a minute ago. It's actually a sensible thing to say.
Utterly reasonable, I think.
Yeah, very reasonable.
I mean, all the big guns are there this weekend. Rebels suffered blow. Alan Cadigan out for the Cork hurlers for the rest of the summer, so a blow for him. And Sexton gets the all clear for historic double tilt. So this was the question on everybody's lips really this week in the lead into the Pro 14 final at the tomorrow, whether Johnny Sexton would be fit or not. The Times Ireland, let's give you a quick look at what's happening there. Keane says to Ferguson, get well soon. That's best wishes from the long-time friends and sometime foes, but everybody united obviously in wishing Alex Ferguson all the best. And Rory McIlroy going pretty well at the PGA Championship is the other dominant story in the back page of the Times Ireland today. The Irish Times, meanwhile, it's Champions League dominance here in the back page, and a history lesson from Ken Early here in relation to all the issues that that country's had, that Ukraine has had over the last decade and more. So kind of an interesting juxtaposition in terms of the game this weekend and the Disneyfication, I suppose, that tends to come frequently with the Champions League when it rolls into town. The blue banners come out and all the little bits of sort of the footpaths get polished a little bit on, and the city gets turned out nice and good for the people who will just roll into town and really not overly consume. That's the good thing about this piece in the Irish Times today, is that most people will go to Kiev. A lot of them will kind of come in, go to the game and get the hell out of Dodge again and not overly really interact with the idea of Kiev as a city.
Yeah, I've heard that there are parts of Ukraine which are absolutely stunning. Like, I mean, that's a very political piece, which is very different. I mean, from a political standpoint, it's obviously a completely messed up country still, and there's very, very obvious things that have occurred there over the past couple of years that would lead you to believe that, and there's evidence there. But just from a pure touristic point of view, I've heard people who've gone to different places in the Ukraine, and apparently it is beautiful. It's one of those hidden gems. So if you can actually park, human ideology for a moment, it's a good place to go.
It is one of the things that these cities tend to do, and increasingly in sort of some of those Eastern Europe and maybe a little bit beyond countries that might have had tenuous enough relationships with human rights, for example, they tend to make big money bids for sporting occasions that ultimately legitimise them as a location. So ultimately that's exactly the point. Everybody's now discussing Kiev as a location, and a location that you can go to and be relatively safe, and it's a pretty nice place to see, and that's the desired outcome of these things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it probably got that with Euro 2012 as well, in a much bigger sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is here 6 years later saying, oh, remember the legacy of Euro 2012 and Kiev. Whatever I used to think about Ukraine has now been completely changed because a football match occurred there.
No.
So I don't think this is going to have any lasting legacy on the truth of Ukraine and Kiev and the political history of the place.
Keane wants more from senior players is the other interesting piece here on the Irish Times. Emmett Malone writing there just about what Roy Keane says about the dynamic of himself and Martin O'Neill's squad, and that, some of the younger players, you got to give them a bit of a break. They're not always going to be on it. He said it took him 20, 25 caps before he found his feet at international football. Got to give the young lads a break, which is sort of interesting from Roy Keane, because giving anybody a break, not normally in his wheelhouse. Ronan O'Gara is here writing on the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section, and also a pretty cool drawing here of Gareth Bale in a pose that we're all very familiar with him in Unrequited Love, while Madrid has never truly embraced Gareth Bale. Now, I mean, he ends up starting perhaps the Champions League final and having a big impact, and maybe suddenly that relationship that at one point you certainly thought was actually all headed in one direction, i.e. him leaving, there might be some possibility to repair it.
Yeah, I think it's a huge evening for him tomorrow, because it's a summer without Gareth Bale. For the brand of Bale he's got to put in a performance tomorrow evening that people will still remember come August time, because a lot of things are going to happen over the next month or two where bigger stars get bigger profiles, and people will overtake Gareth Bale on the list of the most famous whatever world athletes, especially when it comes to football. So I think it's a huge evening for him. It is the end of his season, and not that anybody who's on the pitch tomorrow is thinking about the World Cup or thinking about saving themselves any little bit, but there is a little bit of an added incentive for Gareth Bale that is like, this is the last chance for me to put myself in the world market from a commercial point of view for the next 3 months.
Yeah, if he gets that game. I think we've got the Irish news. Here we go. I haven't seen any of this, so bear with me here. Dan Sarah Hanlon says his season is over. That's pretty self-explanatory, and because I can't really see much of the rest of it, we'll park that one there for the minute and give you a quick flavour of what's happening on the Racing Post. Mainly that the Horse Racing Ireland have appointed a new chairman. It's Nick Hartery, who's a well-known businessman and also a stud owner in County Limerick, so he takes over the reins there with fairly, I think, immediate effect. And then obviously it's Champions League in the back. Hat-trick heroes Real Madrid 8-11 for third straight Champions League title. That's it for me, Owen.
Let's look at the back page of the Herald. Rock of Trust is Dub's key, is the headline in block caps here. Dublin's kicking king believes their ability not to panic comes from a strong spirit within the team. The Dubs, of course, are out this weekend. Pogba lacks support at United, says Roy Keane, of course, in his press conference yesterday, as you'd expect, dominating the back pages this morning. The back page of the Mirror is going with events in Kiev and events a little bit closer to home. Starting with the Champions League final, it says can-do attitude. Star Emery defies injury to set up a glorious final chapter in his Kop career. And then the other one, as I mentioned, a little bit closer to home anyways, Jack Poch, Tottenham boss, wins spending row with Levy for huge transfer funds. So that is a big development and a hugely positive one for any Tottenham fans out there this morning, that not only is Mauricio Pochettino hanging around, he is going to be given a much bigger transfer kitty, but more importantly, you'd imagine, a much bigger wages kitty to keep the stars they already have. New White Hart Lane, it is a massive season for Spurs next year.
I just got the Jack Poch.
You just got it.
Yeah.
Right. That taxi really didn't wake you up early enough.
I'm still getting stuck into the coffee here. Yeah, it's interesting because it's the one thing that Pochettino up to this point had been celebrated for, the fact that he hadn't really spent very much money at Spurs and had achieved some modicum of success with them, albeit without necessarily winning too many trophies. But the fact that he's going to be back now, some interesting names been linked with him this morning: Sessegnon, Martial, a few other players that, you know, you talk about Tottenham perhaps kicking on to the next level. A few players like that actually might be just exactly what's required to get them. I don't know if it's going to make them compete for the Premier League title necessarily over the course of the season, but certainly kick them into the next level. 100%
stagnation is something that Spurs will be looking to avoid. But Arsenal, on the other hand, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is quoted on the back page of the Mirror here this morning, talking about Arsene Wenger, saying, over the last few seasons, you have to tell the truth, the club has stagnated a little bit. I think everyone is excited to see what happens next season. Emery's a really good coach. I know he did really good work with Sevilla and PSG too. That is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the man who said Arsenal stagnated under Arsene Wenger, the man who signed for a club managed by Arsene Wenger, of course, in January.
Cheap
shot indeed by a man. Like, I mean, let dead dogs lie is the phrase I think I'm reaching for there.
Dead dogs? Sleeping dogs.
Sleeping dogs. I mean, wow, okay.
I don't know what's happening around North Kerry.
Sorry, Arsene Wenger is still alive and well. The back page of the Star this morning is €48.5 million. Poch signs mega Spurs deal. You've also got the match in Kiev as well. Cakewalk for Salah. Mo Salah there presented with a cake and flowers at the airport in Kiev ahead of tomorrow's Champions League final.
He's got quality written on his runners. I don't know if you can see it in that photograph.
Quality, yeah.
It appears in some of them, which...
He's not a Connacht man.
I don't know
he's
if
a
that's
Leinster man.
Deliberate necessarily, but yeah.
Well, I presume it's just the new Nike
brand. It could be,
is it?
Yeah, fair enough. I thought it was some sort of deep, meaningful message for the times we live in, Owen, but sure, look, there we go.
Probably is. It's probably, that's why Nike
has done it. The day that's in it here, it's the romantic in me, you know.
Yeah. The back page of the Sun says, I want more from you. Roy rallies. He's challenged his senior players to give a little bit more over these next couple of weeks and indeed into the Nations League. There's that Aubameyang story there as well that says stinker and then stonker. That's Mauricio Pochettino's new contract. And then finally a couple of UK titles. England need a Lord's Prayer, says the back of the Guardian. Rootsmen slumped to a 63-year low as Pakistan take complete control. You might want to get in touch with Kevin O'Brien for some tips on how to have some success against Pakistan. And I think the Telegraph is going with England-Pakistan as well. Indeed it is. Pakistan warned as England crumble. So that's the back page of this morning.
Following that one fairly in depth, have you?
Well, I've been looking at the back pages of UK titles
the
every
same way
month.
you've been following Carla Kildare is what I'm guessing.
Well, I will make sure that I am brushed up beyond belief for Carlo Kildare come the time of throwing.
It'll be a jamboree, folks. I expect it'll be good stuff.
Hopefully, yeah. I've never had a jamboree around a Carlo Kildare match before, but it's the first time for everything.
What actually is a jamboree?
Well, the technical term for a jamboree, it's actually kind of a gathering of like scouts, isn't it?
Oh, that is?
If you Google the definition of it, obviously we would use it for a very different context.